Lloyd, Gordon, it's great to have you guys here.
Oh, thanks so much. This is our first time here. It's kind of a mind-blowing experience.
It's pretty crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Even coming here every day like I do, you still walk in and go, wow. Well, we're so excited to have you here. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much.
We're going to be checking out the hi-fi duet and all kinds of fun stuff. But I have to ask, how does a cello player working in a print shop end up making guitar pickups?
Well, the cello player got into college not on his grades, but only because he was actually a pretty good cello. I was a pretty good cello, semi-professional. My teacher was first chair at LA Phil, and he went to work in the studios. And he was just about to start subbing me when I graduated from high school, went into college. Got into college. I was there for 3 months. A bunch of football players are hazing freshmen in the dorms. Right. Halfback on the football team and a few of his buddies knock on my door at midnight, and they proceed to want to come into my room and do whatever they do to freshmen. I just left crossed the football player right in the smacker, and I broke these 2 fingers pretty badly.
Oh, no.
Yeah. But, I was in college. It was all right. I was in college. There was a lot of beautiful women. I'm having a great time. And so I just kind of went, okay. I got a guitar to try and rehab my hand a little bit. It took me almost a year before I could even make even close to a fist.
Wow.
And so I got this guitar, and I soon realized I sucked at it. Okay. I could never be like these guys that do multi-instrumentals, go from fourths to fifths. I could never do the math in my brain. And so I was really pretty bad at guitar. And so anyway, I'm working I graduated with a degree in art, and I started working as a fine art printmaker in the Bay Area for a while. And so, but I got the itch. I still wanted to have something to do with music. So I started building guitars in my garage in Berkeley as a hobby. About halfway through that first guitar, just something clicked in my brain. I went, yeah, this is it.
Right.
And so, but through a connection I had in art, I had met Ry Cooder a couple of years before that. I'm halfway through this guitar, and I'm going, all right, Ry's going to want a guitar. And so I finished that guitar. I took it down to Ry, and he commissioned me to build a guitar for him.
Right.
A couple years later goes on. I finally, by number 6, I learned enough about building necks, all that kind of stuff. Necks are a lot harder than people think.
I bet.
And the box is easy, but the neck, that's it's like pretty tricky.
Got to get that right.
Got to get that right, and got to get it so it all works. So number 6 guitar comes along, and he's like, "Yeah, I love this," and so that launched my career. And so then he started introducing me to more and more people in LA, and I ended up building guitars for, 2 for Ry, 2 for Janice Ian, 1 from Graham Nash, 1 for David Carradine, a number of other professional musicians in LA. So that got me into making guitars. Ry was coming by the shop a lot at the time. Trying to amplify. He was putting all kinds of crazy concoctions inside the guitar I made for him, and he was touring, and he had a rack full of gear about the size of that thing back there that he needed to make all this stuff work together. That experience had a really profound effect on our goals as a pickup company, and I'll get to in a while. But his discomfort, displeasure, and pain that he was suffering trying to amplify an acoustic guitar really set the course for our trying to make it simple. Ry goes to Japan. His wife knew somebody at Takamine. Takamine invites him to play for the company. He plays at Takamine, comes back, tells me I think Takamine might be copying this guitar, not so sure, but okay, whatever. So about a year more goes by. I get a call from him, and he invites me down to Warner Brothers to hear something he's playing on. Oh, okay, great, fantastic. I just finished a second guitar for him, acoustic, and I'm thinking, maybe he's using it on the album. And so I get down there, and he brings me into the control room and plays an instrumental cut from one of the tracks on Bop Till You Drop, and my jaw dropped. I was on the floor. Wow, how did you mic that thing? And I thought that was my guitar because I saw it leaning against the amp. And he goes, well, that's what I wanted to show you. He said, I didn't use your guitar on that talk. Remember that guitar I told you Talk was maybe copying? He said, I used it. And it's pretty great, isn't it? And I said, whoa, yeah, it's fantastic. But at the same time, I was pretty confused and pretty hurt.
Yeah.
And like the first time I'd seen it. And so I thanked him and took off. And I sat in my car for about a half an hour after that, and just like trying to absorb this thing, kind of calm down. It was the funniest combination of super excited and really pissed at the same time. I'm like, this is warring inside of me. So after about a half an hour, I just said, I'm going to do this. This is where guitars are going, and I want to be a part of it. 6 months goes on, and Ry arranged for a meeting at the NAMM show with he and me and Mr. Harade, who was the gentleman who founded Takamine. I'm driving Ry down the 5 in this beat to crap old pickup truck. I'm looking back on it now, it makes me cringe. I've got a national treasure in my truck, beat up old truck, heading down the 5. And anyway, we have a meeting with Mr. Harade. He ended up agreeing to sell me 10 pickup systems a year for the number of guitars I built. And he said, well, that's all you want? And I said, yeah, that's all I want. He sticks out his hand, sends a couple of systems to me. I took them apart and I went, that's all it is. And little did I know how sophisticated it was. But okay, that's all it is. But it was heavy. It was big and heavy. It was like a boat anchor. And I thought, I can't put this in a $3,000 guitar.
Right.
And so basically all I was trying to do was reverse engineer the thing. And in about a year, I ended up with that first pickup we did, the LB6, which was an integrated saddle pickup that you could actually put in an acoustic guitar without killing it. Didn't have a preamp, didn't have nothing, just had a pickup. I started schlepping them just like Colonel Sanders and his chicken. I'd go just knocking on music store doors and getting a lot of rejection, and some people liked them, and, just the classic story of just, of just keeping going.
Right, and working through the products and all that fun stuff. So,
yeah.
Fantastic. It was quite a story. Quite a story. And you left a few things out of there, but that's quite a story. The part about selling cars and all of the, all the various things that we all do to get to where we get to, right?
Yeah. I've trying to edit a little bit, but after coming up with a pickup, I had a wife and a baby and a lot of debt. I had stopped making guitars. I had pissed off my guitar making clients pretty badly because I'd stopped. I was like monomaniacal. I had to make this pickup. So then ended up, to pay off our debt, I ended up selling cars for 4 years while building the pickup business. We got out of debt, had a little bit of savings, did a lot of prayer, and decided that, okay. And I was having fun selling cars. It wasn't like it was a bad thing. I really loved it.
Oh, sure.
It was really actually a blast. So it was a hard choice to make. But anyway, we prayed about it, and it was like, okay, that's the direction. There's a saying like, building a business is like jumping out of a 30-story window and building an airplane on the way down. And it kind of felt like that. But anyway, we were off and running with our first pickup and out of debt, and we moved up to San Luis Obispo near where we live now. And
fantastic.
Yeah.
That's one of those great success stories. That's fantastic.
Funny thing is, I didn't have an option. I had a wife, I had a baby, and this was the pony I was riding. And I had to make it work. Yeah. So it wasn't like I had too much of an option. So,
right. Well, clearly it's worked out. It's paid off for you and for all the musicians who use the Great Bags product.
Thank you. We've been tremendously blessed.
Yeah.
And we've always moved forward without really knowing what the heck we were doing. Working with musicians like Gordon has been our lifeblood, because we figure out, they tell us what they need. And then, they're brave enough to guinea pig the stuff that we bring them. And so it's been a great relationship with a lot of artists over the history of our business.
So Gordon, how did you guys make the connection, and when did you start getting into the Bags products?
First of all, I just want to say that you went from having products that people swear at to swearing by.
Oh, so thank you.
You've done great. You've done great things.
Thank you.
When we had a hit song in 96 with Eric Clapton's Change the World, me and Wayne Kirkpatrick, Tommy Sims, we were getting called to go play everywhere. Can you come play that song at this fundraiser, this charity, and this? It was even the Kroger Employee of the Year wanted to know if we would come and sing "Change the World," and I realized I don't have an acoustic guitar with a pickup in it. So in 1997, I sought out friends. What do you use? And I got a bunch of people, and I went and got a guitar from Dale Lanyon's, and it had the on board, on the body. It was the Duet.
Oh yeah.
Which sounded incredible. And so I knew, without even A-Bing it with other guitars, because 9 times out of 10 when I would go and do a sound check with other players, with writers in the round kind of shows, the house engineer would go, "What is that?" So I thought, okay, I made the right thing. This is working out great. But I hadn't met him. Then subsequent years, I would do like acoustic tour with Peter Frampton, just the two of us. We'd go out and do these 2-hour, 20-minute shows, and probably over the course of the show use 5 or 6 guitars each, and I think all but 2 of them had his pickups in them. And then the ones that we needed pickups for got sent to them. So it was just like, this was always the one go-to for me. And then we would finally meet at some point. I just remember, him wanting to come by and visit. He came to my studio one day, and I was like, royalty is coming into the door. I've heard about you. I know about you, and I am a fan of yours. And then something very cool happened. Just on a lark, I told him a story about this particular guitar, which is a guitar that my father, Jerry Kennedy, was the first good guitar he got when he was 10 years old. It's a 1950, so his mother bought it for him new in 50. $90.
Wow.
For a double aught 18. And the guy that was teaching him guitar would ultimately ask to borrow it for somebody else to use on a gig. Falls off the roof of the car and when they're going to the show. So he calls my grandmother and says, I've destroyed Jerry's guitar, and I'm going to get him another guitar. Well, rush to the end. 70 years later, the oldest daughter of Tillman Franks, who taught my dad his first guitar lesson, Darlene, has this guitar. But she calls my dad, "Are you interested at all in getting your old guitar back?" He didn't know what she was talking about. Once he figured out what it was, he called me. I picked up my car keys and drove from Nashville to Shreveport straight to her house, and hoping that it would be at least something that looked nice enough in one piece to hang on the wall at his house. That's your first good guitar.
Right.
But it was in one piece, but it was in hideous condition. So brought it back home and thought, I need to get this fixed. Called Ricky Skaggs. "Who do you know at Martin?" Because the guy that I've always talked to was Dick Boak. And he said, "Yeah, that's who I always go to, but let me call him." So Skaggs calls Mr. Boak. He said, "Let me tell you," he said, "if you don't know who Jerry Kennedy is, give me 60 seconds." And just starts rattling off this discography of stuff he played on and produced. He said, "If that's not enough, here's what his 3 boys have done." Boom, boom, boom. And he said, "There's a lot of weight on this little guitar." So Dick Boak says, "Send it to Nazareth. We'll fix it for free. We'll film the process and do a little documentary, and then we'll send this back to, my dad." So I tell him this story in my studio one day, and then all of a sudden this big light bulb goes on over his head. And he says, "I'm working on a prototype pickup. And this story needs to be told. And this guitar needs to have," and so he has this idea, and he said, "You need to give me about 8 months." And I was on tour with Garth at the time. So I had the time. I wasn't going to be needing to see this for all that time. And so I waited, and he got this thing, and he ended up calling it the Hi-Fi. And now it's been modified a couple times since, right? It's in this guitar. I've taken this to do writer shows like Bluebird, because I told him, I said, this story is going to blow people's minds, And I'll play a couple things, licks that my dad, I say, "My dad, you guys know he's played on I'll play a few licks on records that he's played, and always the room is like, you know, I can see the reaction.
Yeah.
And then, but I thought, I'm not going to tell him what I'm playing until before I play the last song, this One Night at the Bluebird. And when I said, and this is the guitar I've been talking about all night, and I had grown men coming up to me in tears, can I touch that guitar?
Wow.
Can I? And I said, here, get your picture made with it. And so I went and told him, I said, I was right, and you're right. This is a story that needs to be told. So he's made it possible for this to go and tell this story.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds amazing.
Yeah.
You know, wasn't expecting any of that when I went to go fetch this guitar to get it back from my dad. Funnily enough, my dad, he sees this guitar and he's not thinking like I am. We need to get a pickup in there. I need to go get this fixed, go play it at this. I can play it at that. My dad sees it, and the only thing that goes across his mind is, how did my mother do that for me? Right. Recently widowed, 3 kids, working at a bakery, walking to work, $32 a week salary, and she spends 3 times the salary on this guitar for him.
That's
in
amazing.
1950. So that's all he thinks about when he sees it. So there's a lot of special. It's a, you know, these things tell stories. He helps me do that,
right,
in the best way possible.
Yeah, it's so fantastic, and that was an abbreviated version of the story of the guitar too, because it went through a lot of travails before.
I called.
Before it got
I called the Franks family and said, help me piece together what this thing went through in 70 years, and it was kind of like, oh, you know, I mean, it's amazing that we're holding it here now.
Yeah, and Martin did a fantastic job. I mean, it's gorgeous.
They did, and Joe Glazer had his hands on a little bit of it after he came back from Nazareth. There was still a couple things that needed to be done, so his touch on it just made it what it is now, which is incredible to me.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
I was thinking and when it came back from Nazareth, I thought the nicer it looks, the less likely it'll sound like a good old Martin, but I was wrong about that too.
They rocked this restoration. Oh, yeah. It sounds so good.
Yeah. It's amazing what they did. So I'm very grateful.
Would you play a little bit for us?
Well, I'm just let you hear what this pickup sounds like. It's nice and rich.
Nice.
Thank you, Lloyd.
Yeah.
So this is the new hi-fi duet system.
Yeah.
So the hi-fi, tell us what that is. Tell us about the hi-fi duet system.
Well, the hi-fi duet system, I'm so privileged to have been any part of amplifying this guitar, and and the fact that Gordon trusted this instrument to me, well, that set the bar pretty high.
Right.
So, like when Gordon suggested he wanted to amplify the guitar, I mean, I'm really proud of everything we had done to that point. But Gordon is like offering me this opportunity to, like, I had to do something more. Mm-hmm. And I had been working on a few things at the time. I had started working on the microphone, and we were fairly along the way with the pickups. So the innovation in the pickups is, well, most people know that bridge plate pickups can sound really good. Mm-hmm. Because they're further away from the string. It's more like a choir mic versus a vocal mic. Vocal mic you can crank. Choir mic, you can't turn up that loud. It needs a loud choir. The string is the choir, or the vocal, right? Mm-hmm. So feedback's always been a problem with these bridge plate pickups, even though they sound better because they're more of the room, more of the choir than just the single vocalist. Right. But they've been prone to feedback. And so that's kind of like pulling the sword out of the rock, is that our general manager, Bo Radis, who's really a fantastic designer, I'd been at this for a couple of years, and I finally gave up. I had something kind of working. 3 or 4 years ago, I gave up. It's like my forehead got bloody hitting that wall. And Bo asked me if he could work on it. He pulled the sword out of the rock. He came up with a transducer that's a bridge plate pickup that sounds great, is dynamic, is faithful to the instrument, and has the same feedback rejection as our undersaddle pickup. we tested this thing in 20 different guitars that each had our Element undersaddle pickup in it, and these pickups, the hi-fi pickups. Every single one out of 20 guitars had like 1 or 2 dB less feedback rejection than the undersaddle pickup, but typically it was a dB or 2 better with the hi-fi bridge plate pickups. And so that was like, okay, there's the win.
Right.
And then making, and it already sounded great. And the other thing that we were really, really focusing on is we didn't want anybody to glue anything to the bridge plate. Electronics, even ours, come and go, but a guitar is forever. So, being a luthier, I had a lot of respect for the instrument. We don't like cutting instruments. We make some side-mounted things for like the lower-cost plywood instruments, but on a fine guitar, we really started the no-cut momentum way back when with our first sound hole remote controls. It's a peel and stick, and it sticks on good, but you can get it off without modifying the instrument.
Right.
That pickup has been doing fantastic for us. I think it's got mostly 5-star reviews here with your great organization.
Yeah.
Selling fairly well. And then we also got a editor's pick from Guitar Player magazine on that transducer. So that set the stage.
Right.
And, so I still wasn't finished with this puppy. The hi-fis are great, but there's nothing like a microphone. And so people started asking us about like, okay, why don't we do an Anthem style microphone for this? And so the Anthem takes up a lot of room that these in here. So we had the opportunity, and this was a prototype of the microphone that I'd showed to Gordon. And so we had to engineer an entirely new microphone for the instrument, and it's called a silo mic. Now, this microphone, it's machined out of aluminum to a tolerance of 1/1000th of an inch. And it's got a shock mount, very much like this microphone has a shock mount here. You can see it. The idea of the shock mount is to keep the room out of what's going into the microphone. The guitar has all kinds of its own frequencies. We wanted to eliminate anything mechanical going into the microphone. So the shock mount, it's basically flubber, our own proprietary flubber. It sucks the life out of any mechanical vibrations before it gets to the capsule. But we found that the way you held it, there's an inertial mass in here, like a big weight that the mic capsule sits in. So the shock mount's tuned very low. And so we found out the way you grabbed the shock mount changed the way the thing sounded. And it turned out to be a bit like building a guitar. Everything mechanical in here matters. So it took us another year from the time we got the thing working to like almost everything we've made is some kind of mistake that we just trip over. And then we have to figure the real engineering is how do we make it work reliably and predictably every time without losing the magic. So that's the engineering.
Right.
The performance is often an accident. More often than not, it's an accident. It's just something we're looking for something, we trip over something, and then it's like, oh, hey, that's really good. Okay, now that's one.
Right.
Now how do we make 1,000 of them the same way every time? So this thing was deeper down the rabbit hole than we'd ever gone. Now, the reason that it sounds so good inside the guitar is we're using a form of a controlled rejection between the front and the backs of the capsule. So we have it's not quite noise canceling, it's a little cardioid-ish. We're controlling the pattern of the microphone, what it accepts inside the guitar, because the inside of a guitar, sounds like not friendly to microphones. Not friendly to microphones. So we have eliminated much of that with the capsule and the shock mount, so we don't have to put a lot of EQ on the microphone to make it sound good. And our whole goal here was to make a system that sounded like you had mic'd the guitar from outside, but you get that live.
Right.
So we're really proud of this thing. I think it's the best. It's the best thing that our team. Our team worked so hard on this. We had hours and hours and hours of bloody eardrums testing it, and like one mounting method versus the next mounting method, and we were just going nuts. It was really a tour down the rabbit hole, and we just really kind of nailed this thing about 2 months ago to where we finally sent it off. We were happy with it. We could get 10 in a row that did the same thing. And we also have a very sophisticated computer test to do frequency response analysis on the microphone before we pair it. We were tuning the electronics to a moving target.
Right.
And so then we finally got the microphone nailed, and then we were able to tune the electronics to the capsule.
Right.
Yeah, so that's the Hi-Fi Duet. So it's basically a bridge plate pickup, which sounds better than under saddle pickups, with a new microphone that's much more controlled and much more realistic. The Anthem mic is still great, but it's more of a direct sound. It's not quite the studio quality sound that you'll get with a Hi-Fi, the Duet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not the first microphone you've done.
No.
Obviously the Anthem and the Lyric as well, right?
And the original Duet that Gordon was talking about, that was our first go at a microphone, mixing it with the LB6. And same philosophy. Right. The pickups have something they do great. The microphone has something it does great, and we blend it through a sophisticated crossover, just like in a hi-fi speaker here. They get the best out of each of the elements and blend them together. And it's in a lot of ways, it's a lot like being a chef.
Yeah.
You just have good ingredients, but the way you blend them together is really important.
You talk about casually about accidents and things, but I've also heard stories of you doing things like putting salt and pepper on guitar tops and backs and vibrating them to see the resonance patterns and the different things you've gone through to learn about the actual characteristics of the instrument that you're working on. And that's so important as well, to really understand the instrument so you can amplify it well.
That certainly helped. I think that's maybe been our secret weapon.
Salt and pepper?
Yeah. I like a little garlic once in a while, olive oil. But yeah, absolutely. Understanding the physics of the guitar, the modes, they do different things. The left, right of the guitar sounds one way. The front to back sounds good one way. So there's actually, on the hi-fi pickups, there's actually a ratio of admittance between the length and the width to accept less of the front to back than the left and the right bending of the top. So that was no accident.
Yeah.
It had to do with, and that came from understanding the physics of the guitar.
Yeah, a lot of experience and a lot of work goes into to something that seems fairly simple when you install in the guitar and plug it in.
Oh yeah.
But there's a lot of hours of, like you said, a lot of hours of research and work and listening.
I think if anything, if we have a secret weapon, we pray a lot and we work our butts off.
Yeah.
And it's I think perspiration is as much a part of inspiration as anything. We just don't. We're relentless.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fantastic though. Obviously the results speak for themselves in that case.
Thank you.
So, Gordon, when you look at a pickup system for a guitar, is it different when you're thinking about a live show on a big stage versus a more intimate show versus being in the studio? How do you think about the pickups in that regard, or the voicing of them?
For me, what works is when I don't think about it.
Yeah.
It's, in other words, if I don't notice something, it's working.
That's our goal.
Yeah.
That's it.
And I'll say about, like, I've been such a fan of everything that I've ever had in my guitars that he's put in there. And I would say, this system is great, the iMix, that system is great. But when he was telling me about this, he said, this is going to be better. And I'm like, well, you'll have to prove that to me,
Right.
And then sure enough, I get this guitar and I plug it in, and then I plug in one of my other guitars with the iMix. And suddenly I'm thinking, well, now you've made something that you've done prior to this sound almost a little more, just that much more antiseptic sounding or something, you know? I don't know how, but that's because you are relentless. You know, you could have stopped with me, you could have stopped with all the other pickups, but the fact that you don't is what makes you know?
Well, thanks. I mean, I figure like it's really great in life when anybody finds their lane, right? Mm-hmm. And I figure, okay, God gave me this lane, and I have to give back and I got to use up every little bit of it, you know, because it was a gift.
Right.
And so to be able to and the gift to me is to be able to collaborate with great artists, and I mean even be here at Sweetwater. Mm-hmm. Holy criminy. How many people get this opportunity? This is like such a gift.
So does it vary with a pickup system like this with the microphone if you're putting it in a smaller body guitar versus a big jumbo or a 12-string or a baritone, or how does the voicing affect that?
That is the hardest part. Is we could build one perfect for every guitar, but that's not practical. Mm-hmm. So we have to hit a bell curve, right? So we have so many guitars at our shop, and we just have this range of instruments, but we have to hit a bell curve that works in everything.
Right.
James Taylor once said, for a guitar to be in tune anywhere, it has to be a little out of tune everywhere. Right. That's what the bell curve feels like. Uh-huh. So we have to come up with a tuning that may not be perfect for every guitar, but it works across the spectrum of small to large guitars. Mm-hmm. But on this guitar with the duet, we have a fallback position with the hi-fi pickups. The microphone is going to give you all the yummy stuff when you can use it, but it's not always musically appropriate. Mm-hmm. You have, if it gets too crazy, you have a ripcord. You can always go back to the pickup.
Right.
And the pickup is voiced to sit in a mix in front. So that's what you need. Mm-hmm. And then the microphone, well, there's the dimensionality and there's the yummy stuff, but it you know, in a live, down on Broad Street in Lower Broad in the War Zone in Nashville, that's not gonna work. You need something that cuts through the mix, and you can play louder than the guy across the street playing as loud as he can play. So you need the versatility. So
right.
That's one of the things about this system that is really cool, is that you can go from church or performing arts center all the way to a dive bar or a loud bar down on Lower Broad.
There's a blend control?
Oh, absolutely.
So you can mix the mic and the pickup?
Yeah, there's a little control wheel right here that if you roll it all the way that way, it's just the bridge. Mm-hmm. All the way that way. It's the mic. You see a little more richer sounding there.
Right.
I imagine, don't you also think that maybe it depends on, you know, for like certain situations where if you got wedges versus in-ears.
Absolutely.
That's going to help determine where you set this.
Right.
You know, and songwriters using acoustic guitars, everywhere you go is different than the last place. There's no two places alike. So this is crucial.
Do you find yourself adjusting it a lot, or do you have kind of a go-to position on the blend?
I'll try to use as much of the mic as the venue and the setup will allow. Mm-hmm. So, because it does sound more like this guitar sounds acoustically.
Right.
But, you know, if you got a wedge in front of you and the person next to you wants more, everything, more, then you start, rolling this that way.
Right.
Yeah, to compensate.
Yeah, certainly. But like you said, the pickups sound fantastic just by themselves. I mean, before you even start mixing in the silo mic, is still, so you really have that option to configure it the way you need it for your particular application.
Yeah, Bo did a fantastic job on this pickup. And the thing I like the best about that is that I didn't invent it. That means we got more gas in the tank. Mm-hmm. And, so we got a talented group of people. The pickup, it's the microphone adds dimensionality, but it doesn't necessarily change the sound. Mm-hmm. And it's like it spreads it out and the pickup brings it back and it's more pointed. But the sound is actually reasonably similar because the hi-fi is like a I'm into hi-fi, and like that's this is a high kind of hi-fi sound,
Right.
And which was what we were after. So it's a pickup on its own, which sounds pretty decent, and you can be happy enough playing the pickup only. But then when you get the opportunity to open it up and get the dimensionality, that's where the microphone shines.
Well, congratulations on that. It's such an exciting advance, and the guitars obviously sound fantastic. I know we have a lot of people waiting to get their hands on the Hi-Fi Duet and get it installed in their instruments.
Oh, thank you. It should be available here certainly by the end of June.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, that's exciting. I'm going to have to give it a try on a few of my guitars as well.
Great.
Excited. So what's coming up next? Can you give us any hints, or do we have to wait?
I've come full circle.
Yeah?
Yeah. When COVID hit, everybody started working from home remotely for a while. And the guy said, why don't you build a guitar? And I went, nah, no way. But they talked me into it. And we have developed a new form of acoustic electric guitar. I've had a heart for acoustic electric guitars since the Godin Acousticaster.
Yeah.
Which was actually my design that I licensed to Godin and put our company on the map. I had this question in my mind as a builder: how could you make an acoustic electric guitar that acoustically didn't sound like a banjo? Because small body, the Chet was a plank. The Chet was brilliant, absolutely brilliant, blew everybody's mind. And so the guitar I built, the Acousticaster, that was just trying to make an acoustic guitar top more vibrant, but it's still, you play it acoustically, kind of sounded like a banjo. So about every 5 years, I just get this, I'd spend a week trying to make an acoustic electric not sound like a banjo. Composite tops, this and that, different air, just messing around with it.
Right.
And I just was like a bug on the windshield. Nothing was working. And so anyway, COVID hits. The guys say, go home, build a guitar. And so now with my phone, I have more scientific equipment than I did when I was building guitars with a guitar speaker and salt and pepper, right? Right? So I started analyzing more acoustic guitars and started building a small guitar until I could get the thing working like I wanted to. And so the thing that broke the ice was, I cut down a full dreadnought. It wasn't a Martin. It was, but I cut it down. I cut it to about that thick.
Yeah.
And son of a gun, there was something about it that worked. And again, happy accidents.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, what's working? The back was moving. And if you've had any experience with acoustic electric guitars, they're hard to stay in tune because they're kind of noodly, right? And so there's a thing in the industry, we call them nut bowls, because you take a chunk of mahogany, hollow it out. First thing you build in junior high wood shop is a nut bowl for your mom, right? So people call them nut bowls. And so you hollow this thing out, the neck is in there, and it's just a one-piece body. It's really flexible and hard to stay in tune. So we realized that you had to hold the neck rigid. The more rigidly you hold the neck, the more energy it drives into the top. So we built a structure inside of the guitar that attaches the neck to the waist, but it floats. So the neck is attached to the waist by a floating structure within the guitar. Then we were free to make the top as sensitive as we wanted to, because it wasn't holding as much of the pressure.
Mm-hmm.
On an acoustic guitar, it's the back that holds the neck in place. Take the back off, guitar caves in. It's the back. Those curved backs, high resonance, holding the neck in place, they're doing a lot of work. So we use a neck structure, attaches the neck to the waist, and it is rigid. And so all the energy from the strings shunk into the top. We could voice the top like a real acoustic guitar. But since the back was not doing the job of holding the neck anymore, that allowed us to voice the back in a way that's like a passive radiator on a bass speaker. So you get a lot of activity off of the bass. So it's not an acoustic. It's not a dreadnought. It's not even this triple O when you play it acoustically.
Right.
But it's not a banjo anymore. And it has its own voice. And we put the duet system in this instrument, same system that's in here, hi-fi duet. We've had a number of musicians be real excited about it so far. And so we couldn't build it in the States because it was just it would have been too expensive. So we partnered with Crafter of Korea, who are a fantastic company. They had been a pickup customer of ours for 30 years, so we were great friends with them anyway, and they were crazy enough to take this project on because it was a whole new production line that we've come up with. We'll have a container of these on the water in August, maybe September. And we're so proud to be working with Crafter. It's a small family company, and 3 generations now. The founder was Mr. Park. Still works in the factory some. He's in his 80s. He still comes in and works in the factory some. And occasionally the grandma, she will make lunch for the factory, right? So, it's this really tight-knit, wonderful, loving family, and we're really privileged to work with them, and they've knocked this instrument out of the park, and we're very excited to introduce this instrument.
Well, that's going to be fun to check out.
Yeah, so
heard it here first, right?
Full circle.
Wow.
And I'm privileged to make the announcement here.
Wow, fantastic. Well, we're excited. That's going to be fun to check out.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Great. Gordon, what's coming up for you? Are you got any tours coming up, studio work, songwriting? You're busy all the time.
Well, my side hustle at the moment is I play for Garth Brooks, and he's started the second year of a 2-year residency at Caesar's Palace, Forum in Caesar's Palace. So we just did the first run of 4 that we do this year. Each time we go out, it's 3 weekends, 3 shows per weekend. So we're doing that 3 more times this year. 1 more time in February next year, and then I'm going to be in the Spinal Tap sequel, Spinal Tap 2, with our band.
Yeah?
It's part of the plot of the new movie, so I don't know how much I should say.
Yeah.
But we shot that when we were in Vegas this past time out.
How
So
fun is that?
yeah, we're going to be in Spinal Tap 2.
Oh,
Yeah.
man, that's something you can only dream of.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So you got a part-time job with Garth. You're a movie star.
Yeah.
You're Grammy winner, writing amazing songs for
you know
everybody.
what? When people say, "What do you do?" I always go, "Whatever they let me do." That's the answer I give people. It's whatever they let me do, and I'm doing a lot of things I would never have dreamed I would be doing at this point in my life, or any point in my life for that matter. So I'm just very blessed.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So congratulations on an amazing career and so much more good stuff to come.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, well, we appreciate the 2 of you taking time to sit down with us. It really
thank
has
you.
been cool. And I can't let you get away without playing a little more on the guitar because I know everybody's going to want to hear this hi-fi duet a little bit. So would you strum for us just a little bit?
Yeah, let me just move that out of the way.
Yeah.
Sing it, Lloyd.
You don't want me singing anything. I can't clap on the downbeat in church.
Stay tuned.
Fantastic. Thank you both. Appreciate it so much.
Thank
You're welcome. Thank you.